Bonjour et bienvenue au Fed Marketing. Préférez-vous les instructions en français ou en anglais?
En anglais.
Anglais? Each team has 20 minutes to present its case to the judges. The time is indicated on the timer as a countdown here. I will also indicate the time remaining with posters. If you don't end your presentation after 20 minutes, you will be stopped and move on to the period of questions. The period of questions of a maximum duration of 5 minutes is assigned to the jury at the end of the presentation. I would like to remind each judge that it's mandatory to ask at least one question during this period. Please note that you cannot reveal the name or the source of your university, as you may be disqualified. I would like to ask the public to turn off the ringing of their cell phones. I will now invite the judges to introduce themselves.
Hi, Audrey Perron-McHenry, Marketing Advisor at Metro.
Hi, Anthony Beatty, HR Business Partner at Fairstone.
Hi, Jérôme Chouinard, District Manager, Fairstone.
Jean-Pierre Laporte, Brand Manager, Procter & Gamble.
When I was back home for Christmas, I took the time to go for brunch with my good friend Ev. Ev was telling me about how she just landed her dream job as an engineer for the dream company. However, she was confiding in me how she wasn't really living the dream life financially. First of all, she had an unexpected car accident, which resulted in her having to pay a lot of money for the damages. Secondly, she also had a lot of furniture to buy for her new apartment that ended up being more expensive than she predicted. And finally, she may have gone a bit overboard during our annual Boxing Day shopping and went over her credit limit. So Ev then confided in me that she applied for a loan at the bank, but that she wasn't eligible for this loan. She then turns around at me devastated and asks me what could she do. At the time, I had no idea really what to answer, as in my head, the only option was a loan from the bank. However, today, now I would know that I could recommend her to apply for non-bank lending options with companies such as Fairstone. Dear members of the jury, chers membres du jury, my name is Monica, and I'm here today with Crystal and Geneviève, and we are here to show you how to increase Fairstone's brand awareness and really position it in the head of millennials so that the first option that comes to mind when they want a lending option is Fairstone. So how we're going to proceed today, we'll start with an analysis of your industry and your company itself and the opportunities and threats that it faces. We'll then move on with presenting to you the alternatives that we considered and why we decided to go with the ones that we chose. We'll then move on to the opportunity statement and our recommendation strategy itself, and we'll finish with the implementation and the financials, and then the key takeaways. I'll now hand it over to Crystal.
Thank you, Monica. So we first made an industry analysis to look at the position of Fairstone relative to the competitors, and we based it on two main criteria. One being accessibility, so whether or not it's easy for people to use the service. So the more right way you are, the more accessible you are. And in terms of credibility, so how people think your service is reliable. So the higher you are, the more credible you are. So in terms of banks, they're the most differentiated from Fairstone since they do have high credibility. However, since they aren't very accessible and since they are very choosy with their clients, they aren't as accessible. And finally, looking at Fairstone in relation to three of some top competitors, they are fairly clustered together. In terms of Mogo, Easy Financial, and Payday Loans, they all have around the same amount of accessibility. However, their amount of credibility differs on the company. In terms of Fairstone, they are fairly average. When we're envisioning the future of Fairstone, however, we are looking to see them as a credible and accessible company in the future. And in terms of a company analysis, they do have a few opportunities that Fairstone can leverage. First of all, they are present across Canada, so they have a very local feel. Additionally, the perception in the Canadian economy and among citizens is changing. For instance, people live paycheck to paycheck. They are more easily swayed by loans, are more easily swayed to take them out. However, there are a few threats. As mentioned, there are a few competitors that are very close to Fairstone. As well, customers who aren't very aware of Fairstone are, as a result, have no choice but to go to places like Payday Loans, which aren't very beneficial to them. Finally, as a non-bank lender, they do face a few negative associations. And as a whole, since Fairstone is a fairly new company, they do suffer a little bit with a lack of awareness. And then I'd like to show our target market analysis. I'd like you to meet Pete. He's 30 and he's a repairman. I don't have internet, so please don't judge me. So there's a few likes that he has. He likes, like any other millennial, he likes checking his phone, spending time with his kids. On the way to work, he likes to listen to his favorite podcast. However, he dislikes a few things like adulting, so looking at his bank balance or spending money. In terms of his financial strategy, he doesn't really have a lot of options in mind. His first thought is just to go to Google to look at financial solutions or borrowing from the bank as much as he can. So for Pete, he is on a time crunch for credit if he's suddenly encounters an accident or a sudden loan he needs to pay back. However, he is very eager to borrow, but he's not very knowledgeable about the financial services out there for him. As a result, First Stone is a service that would be perfect for Pete, but he doesn't know that it's there. He's brand unaware. So as a result, the key purchase criteria for First Stone we identified is brand awareness. So when looking at our recommendations, we realized that Fairstone needs to position itself to have a higher brand awareness and image, so they will be first in mind as a reliable lender that fits the needs of their target market. I'll now like to pass it on to Jen.
Thank you, Crystal. So now we considered many different alternatives when it came to coming up with our strategy. First, we looked at having an Instagram live video chat where different users could ask questions and people from the Fairstone company could answer them and show them how easy it is to borrow with Fairstone. We also looked at partnering with banks. We looked at having testimonials from different customers showing how they've used Fairstone and how it was beneficial to them. We also looked at having micro-influencers, as they are followers with less than 30,000 followers, and they've proven to be the most efficient, as they have more trust in them than followers with over 1 million. We looked at leveraging partnerships that you currently have, such as with the JA program. We looked at having podcasts, guerrilla marketing, and finally contests and referrals. Our non-negotiables when it came to making this strategy was, first of all, feasibility. As you know that you don't want to spend too much money in addition to what you're already spending for marketing purposes. We also want to create brand excitement. We want to be aligned with a company and services that are currently provided by you, and finally we want to develop trust and loyalty with the community that you cater to. So here is the decision matrix that we came up with. First of all, if we look at the feasibility of having an Instagram live video chat, it's very feasible, it creates excitement, however it's not aligned with the current platforms that the company is present on. We looked at partnering with banks, however we saw that in the long run it would probably cannibalize your own sales, which is why we suggested that this is not the best strategy. We looked at having testimonials, however we thought that people that borrowed money in the past probably won't want to tell people that they borrowed money, as it's something that has some stigma around it. Finally, we looked at having micro-influencers, but once again people don't want to talk about when they borrowed money. Which is why we came up with our strategy that will encompass all three following strategies. So first of all, creating a podcast. Secondly, having a guerrilla marketing campaign. And thirdly, using contests and referral system.
So this leads us to our opportunity statement. So the three strategies that we just mentioned are all encompassed into one overall win and fair square recommendation strategy. And with this recommendation strategy, Fairstone will increase its current customers by 22 to 24%. As well as gain between 105,000 and 145,000 potential customers. And how will they do so? Through creating brand awareness, excitement, and a sense of engagement and community amongst the customers. So what do we mean by this? We mean that customers like Ev, when they're looking for an option to lend money, they will be aware and they will position in their minds, and the name of Fairstone will come up in their minds, as they will be aware of the company's name through the three strategies that we will now jump into. So for the three strategies, we divided them into two main objectives. So the win, fair, and square strategy is split into, first of all, the objective to increase the brand awareness. And this will be achieved with, first of all, our podcast idea and our guerrilla marketing idea. And finally, yes, it's good to have potential customers and increase the brand awareness, but you do want to also increase your customer base in the end, which is why we came up with the third idea, which is contests and referrals, which we will jump into shortly. I'll now hand it over to Genevieve.
Thank you. So looking at the first of our strategies, we thought that there's a growing opportunity in the market to actually come up with a podcast. In fact, in a recent study, we saw that 1 in 4 Canadians listen to podcasts at least once a month, and usually millennials are loyal to the podcast, so they will listen to the entire podcast and will continue returning to the same podcast line as they like the content. So we suggest that you create a podcast that will provide financial advice and financial responsibility to its listeners. That way, you will be able to create a sense of trust, credibility, and also engagement with your different follower base, as they will be looking forward to having your podcast come out every month. So we are planning on targeting those people that are seeking for financial advice in a new medium, something that has never been done by banks or lenders, so that way you would have a first mover advantage. We would do this by having a social media specialist that would visit different branches bi-weekly for 30-minute podcasts that would be also launched bi-weekly. So these would also be reposted on the social media pages in order to have the most reach possible. This is an example of how it would be presented. So life is unexpected. Your car broke down, need hockey equipment, you're late on your credit card payment. Do one of these scenarios apply to you? Don't worry. When life isn't fair, Fairstone is there. So check out these free financial advice podcasts or visit our social media pages to book an appointment with a specialist. So this would be an example of ad that would be posted on a podcast on different popular podcast series. Looking at the implementation of this, we would plan on advertising on popular national and local podcasts for the most popular ones amongst millennials. We would have it bi-weekly for a year. We would also hire the part-time podcast specialist that would go around to different branches to talk to the different managers and say what their best financial advice is. And we would also have the Eco Minute, so tips on how to save money and be environmentally friendly at home. So that would tie into the sustainability aspect of how Fairstone can be sustainable. This would be measured by different KPIs, such as the number of streams, the number of downloads, and the number of shares. Looking at the implementation, we would also advertise this on popular national and local podcasts for the advertisements. And as you can see, the benefits would be niche marketing, creating a connection with the community. You would have the first mover advantage, as we mentioned earlier, creating trust with the brand, and increasing awareness on local and national level. Now off to the second part.
Thanks, Olivia. So for our second strategy, we also saw an opportunity to use guerrilla marketing in order to really represent your brand. So we had the idea of having unexpected professional stuntmen who do street performances on April 1st. Why April 1st? This is the day where Fairstone was created or founded back in 2017. And at these professional stuntmen performances would really demonstrate that life is unexpected. And we would have this on a banner, as well as booths where you would have Fairstone representatives that would provide information to potential customers. And at these booths, there's also be social media places where potential customers can take pictures. And in order to incentivize these potential customers to share the picture, we would have a contest where the most likes or shares on a photo would get a $1,000 gift card. So this is an example here of what you can see as it would be an Instagram post of the picture that was taken at this booth. And what we really want to emphasize here is that we plan on having these guerrilla marketing performances performed in 6 of Canada's top major cities. And there would be approximately 2 stuntmen per city. So this unexpected performance would also generate social media buzz and would become viral, as it would happen in very popular key popular places, excuse me, and would be unexpected, so people would film it and share it to their friends, with, of course, promoting the Fairstone brand. So in order to measure the performance of this strategy, we thought of 3 KPIs. The first one being, these are 3 important social media metrics. The first one being the social media buzz, so the number of likes and shares that were posted through the pictures or the videos of this performance. The second social media buzz is social media engagement, so how engaged are the customers with this surprise performance? Are they sharing it? Are they commenting on it? And the third one would be the social media audience of the Fairstone page, as at these booths we would recommend the potential customers would have to like or follow the Fairstone Facebook page, so this would result in an increase of their likes and follows. And the benefits, first of all, would increase the brand awareness, which is something we really want to focus on today, create brand excitement, and increase your social media presence, which is probably the most important tool for millennials these days. Now moving on to our third idea, the contest. So our idea here is to have a lottery draw contest where customers or employees win tickets to attend sponsored local events. And this would leverage the sponsorships that you already have with certain events, such as, for example, the Lurka Run. And an add-on we would add to this contest is that if an employee or a customer would refer a new customer, it doubles its chances to win in the draw. So it gets 2 times its number of participations in the draw. So why did we do this? Because we already know that you have the existence of your current sponsored events. And we also, through research that we did previously, we found that 92% of consumers are most likely to buy from a referral and consider this as the most credible source in their purchase decision, which is why we believe that this referral strategy would be effective. So the promotion of this contest and the referral program would be done through emails, the signage in your different branches, as well as social media pages and internal communications, as your employees can participate in this as well. And we also believe that you should add, when you have a new customer in this initial survey, you should add the question, obviously, if they were referred, to be able to measure who referred who. And we can have the following KPIs here to measure the effectiveness of this strategy. And the main benefits we really want to highlight here is that it would build engagements not only with your customers, but also your employees, as they would recommend their friends and their family to go with Fairstone. It would enhance your customer loyalty, as they know they have the chance to win free tickets to these contests and these events. And finally, attract new customers, which is our main objective we really want to attain with this strategy.
Now, of course, you're in the financial services industry, so you're dying to get to the numbers. So looking at the cost breakdown, we can see that for the podcast, overall, it will cost between $47,000 and $57,000, which is for the entire year, as podcasts are not as pricey as, for example, national broadcast television advertisements. Looking at the guerrilla marketing campaign, as we said, you would have 2 different stuntmen per city, and they would be approximately $100 a day. And with the licensing fee for being in these public areas and downtown areas of the cities, the total cost for this campaign will be between $5,000 and $6,500. Finally, looking at our contest, looking at the contest promotion in the branches through different posters, it would be between $5 and $10 per branch. And then the ad development cost would be between $1,000 and $1,500. So overall, the contest would cost between $7,000 and $10,000. Looking at the awareness step down, we can see that through the podcast, given that the podcast viewers in Canada are between 9 and 10 million, and if you look, we can reach through ads 30% of them. 10% would probably be interested in the podcast, 20% of these would listen to the podcast, and finally, those who become brand loyal would be approximately 60%, which brings us to 32,000 to 36,000 viewers of your podcast. Looking at the stunt date, the Canadian population is of 36.7 million. About 10% of these people live in the major cities and also would be reached through social media. Therefore, we think that people that we can reach through this campaign is between 74,000 and 110,000 people. Finally, looking at the contest, we know that you have current employees 1,400, and we approximated your current customer base to be about 200 per branch. So overall, we can see that you could increase your customers by 10,000 and 12,000, which is an increase of 22 to 24%. Moving on to the implementation.
So looking into the timeline, we want to start immediately with promotion since it is a new and thriving company. So first in January and February, in terms of the podcast, we'll start hiring the podcast specialists. Then from February to December, we'll start producing the podcast and distribute them online. In February and March, we'll develop the ads to promote the podcast. And in March and April, the ads podcast will be distributed. And then looking at April and December, we'll be posting the podcast online as well. So in terms of the second part of the strategy, from January to February, we'll create the promotional material Life is Unexpected for the Guerrilla campaign. In January and March, we'll discuss with local authorities and governments to get the licenses required for the Guerrilla campaigns. And in April, we'll begin commencing the campaign. And finally, the third part of the strategy, the contest, we'll develop the contest and referral program. In April and June, we'll communicate internally. And finally, June, December, we'll launch the contest as well as the referral program. Of course, through all of this, we'll have a metrics and looking back to see whether or not there's any changes that needs to be made. And at the end of the year, we'll evaluate whether or not the KPIs and strategy were efficient and whether or not there were any needs any changes needed to be made. Looking at the key takeaways, as we discussed today, we had 3 key strategies. First, the podcast, which will communicate with and connect with the local community and enhance trust and credibility amongst the consumers. Finally, secondly, the guerrilla marketing campaign, which increases the brand excitement, improves social media presence, which will allow Fairstone to be in touch with millennials. And then looking at contests and the referral program, it enhances customer loyalty, increases engagement in customers and employees, which overall attracts new customers, which will attract around 10,000 and 12,000 new customers through our conservative calculations. So the potential is a lot higher than that. As well, these strategies will also increase brand awareness and potential customers by around 105 to 145,000. I'd like to thank everyone for coming in on this Saturday. Thank you for listening to our presentation. We'd be happy to answer any questions in English or French. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to, if you could just elaborate on the part for the podcast where we're talking about the Echo Minute, just to say how would it work out and how would it look like, or
So
how?
an example of this would be, for example, a lot of companies are trying to be eco-friendly, and at the same time, by saving money, for example, reusable bags at the grocery store. You could mention in your podcast, oh, if you want to save 10 cents today while also helping the environment, you could use a reusable bag, bring it to the grocery store, just don't forget it, have it in your trunk. That way it's an easy...
So remind people of actual stuff that are...
Quick financial sustainability
Exactly.
aspects.
Since we identified that about 56% of people consider sustainability in their purchasing decisions, having this option in podcast would definitely have a differentiation factor.
Thank you.
Great. Congrats for your presentation. I would go back to guerrilla marketing strategy. You target the key popular attraction. And my question is, do you have some example across Canada to have some attraction?
Of course. So first of all, in the top 6 cities we were thinking of targeting, we had Montreal, Quebec, because it's one of the cities with the most millennials in Canada, we found through our research, as well as Toronto, Calgary, and Vancouver. Unfortunately, I didn't have the chance to go to all these places in my life, but for Quebec, I would give the example of Old Quebec because we know it's a very popular place where there's a lot of street performances already executed. Montreal, we were thinking of Place Ville-Marie or St. Catharines, and in Toronto, there's Dundas Square, which is very popular and very visited as well by local population.
Yeah. Thanks.
No worries.
Knowing that brand awareness is one of the main issues that we're facing here, why did you decide to go with podcasts? That is not necessarily the most widespread media there, knowing that there's like TV or billboards or Instagram or whatever else. Like, what's the idea behind going strictly on podcasts for brand recognition?
For sure, I can gladly answer that.
Yeah.
So there's been a trend in the Canadian and American market in the previous year to actually a major growth on podcasts. So that's why we decided to focus on this. And also it's a very niche market. So it's people that are looking for financial advice. They're looking for things to listen to. So it's very easy to reach these customers that probably otherwise would not know of Fairstone, but it would be really easy for them to learn about the brand and to trust the brand just through this podcast awareness.
I'd just like to add on that podcast is also very used by millennials, which is our target market with this whole strategy, more than traditional mass advertisements options such as TV, for example.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.